You can, I had it. You can allow them just to take a peep. Just let them take a peep.
Okay, 7 on the dot. I'm going to kick off now.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the broadcast this evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Nice to see you again.
How are you this evening, sir?
Oh, fine. We've had a big storm about 24 hours ago. And as you can imagine, I left the headache to you and just put my own feet up, you know.
No, I think we're all used to certain things can happen with internet cables when it rains.
Yeah.
From time to time, we try to be prepared for that.
You were prepared.
We were prepared this time around. Yes, sir. We were prepared. Fantastic. Sir, last week I ended, we ran out of time, but I ended on the United Nations Security Council vote and how the United States had abstained from the vote, which meant that Israel found herself in a very difficult position, which some have referred to as total isolation from the rest of the international community. I had two questions for you, sir. Number one is, what does this mean for Israel and Israel's relationship with the United States? And secondly, how binding exactly is this resolution on Israel? Because the war doesn't appear to have stopped at this point in time.
Good, thank you. Good point to start the our evening. Looks like it's going to be one of these hot evenings. There is a proverb amongst our people. The same proverb may exist in other parts of the world. And the proverb says, if you climb a tree beyond the leaves, what is going to happen? You are going to fall off the tree and collapse. If you are not careful, you break your neck in the process. What the vote by the United States signified was that Israel had actually climbed the tree beyond the leaves. It had exhausted all the sympathy that it had amongst Americans. Of course, we've known for months that it had exhausted sympathy in the world. We had even known that it had exhausted sympathy in the United States itself. But within the Biden administration, with the election looming, the sympathy was still being stretched to its limit. So what the vote meant was that Israel couldn't count on the United States to use its veto to protect the excesses of Israel within the Security Council of the United Nations. That's the first point. And as regards your second question, it's one thing to exercise that veto, but the United States, and not only the United States, Great Britain and several other Western countries were playing a double game. Vote against Israel or refrain from exercising the right to veto, giving the impression that Israel was now being penalized. But on the other hand, supplying weapons, supplying financial assistance to Israel. So you were sending two double messages to Israel. We'll vote against you. We have to. But at the same time, what really matters to you, which is supplication or supplying weapons to you, that will continue. And in fact, it's like you saw the future. Since last week, we have seen a game playing by the United States, by Great Britain, by France, by several Western countries when Israel killed seven seven people who came to help, absolutely innocent. But this is not surprising to me. This is April. You will recall that in January, when the moderator wished me Happy New Year, I refused, I rejected his greetings because I said in Gaza and in the West Bank, innocent people, doctors, medical personnel, journalists have all been killed, deliberately targeted, their hospitals targeted, their ambulances targeted, and that I didn't see anything that was happy about the New Year. And Israel got away with it, even though Israel was being given a rap on the list, because they knew.
Why it was too much? Why it was too much?
Go ahead, sir.
Because Israel was deliberately targeting these innocent souls. Families were being wiped out, and they did nothing about it. So in a way, this is an extension. Now, 3 days ago or so, eight workmen were killed, deliberately targeted. These were people who were supplying food to the needy. And now we are getting crocodile tears from Israel itself, from Western countries. In fact, what has now happened, which were those of you who are historians may wish to please embodied my narrative. I have never known a period in British history when several judges or justices of the Supreme Court will join hundreds of lawyers in writing in an open letter to the to the British government saying the time is ripe for you to cut off financial and military aid to Israel, because Israel's behavior was now close to what can be defined as genocide. Those people did, judges of the British Supreme Court were almost at the top of the echelon, but they deliberately chose those words because they knew that the International Court of Justice, being very careful in their last pronouncement, while anybody who could read English will know that they were saying Israel was really close to committing genocide, but that they still hadn't come to that conclusion. These judges in Britain were saying, no, the evidence is It's very clear. So really, this is really what has happened. Israel had climbed the tree beyond the leaves, frankly, and some of us will maintain that it has fallen off. In the process, it's brought down the United States, Great Britain, in terms of their international reputation.
But sir, at the risk of sounding insensitive, some could say that, well, yes, aid workers have been killed, but it's a war zone. And with the war zone comes risks. And these individuals were aware of the risks of being in a war zone. And Israel has apologized on this particular occasion that it was a mistake. So to that extent, what do we say? It's an apology. Do we accept the apology? And what exactly do we expect Israel to do now? Do we expect Israel to say, well, fine, we made a mistake, we're now going to stop the war? Is that even an option on the table for Israel at this stage in the war?
Please, let Israel keep its apology to itself. It's something Israel has done deliberately. It was not a mistake. What Israel has done is to send a signal to aid workers that their presence is no longer tolerated in Gaza. Or we will apologize. We will tell you it's all a mistake, but frankly, it isn't. So let's not, if Israel is, again, there is a proverb amongst our people. If Israel is kidding itself, let us not kid ourselves. Another piece of news that came out 2 hours ago, because, as you have evil men on one side, on the other side, you also have men with conscience. And now, wicked whistleblowers from the Israeli side are coming out to say that actually, for months, Israel has been using AI, artificial intelligence, to target the faces recognition of the high-ranking levels of Hamas people. Yes, I have no problem with that. That is where your point about this is war. And during war, all kinds of things happen. It is the parameters that had been set, keyed into the use of the AI. And what are these parameters? If you are a low-level Hamas leader, then if the AI picks you up going into a house, if there are only 300 people in the House? Well, because at the, I mean, at the, at the end of the day, it's a human being who presses the button. If it's only 300 people, well, let it go. But if the AI picks a high-ranking Hamas leader, and there are 3,000 people in the building, bring down the building. So, in other words, the ratio of the recognition paradigm and the human beings that will be regarded as collateral damage varies depending on how they've graded the Hamas leaders. That Israel has been using this for months. And so that there is no question of making mistakes. The AI will have identified facial recognition of, because what the AI had been doing is it had been scanning the faces of the people in Gaza and storing them in the computer. And as it continues to scan around, when it identifies a particular face, then it signals to its handler, as I have identified this face. And depending on how you grade the face, it depends then on whether you bring the building down. And then what do you say? We made a mistake. We didn't know. No. Israel is too smart to be selling towards this mistake paradigm.
Before I leave UN security votes, let's just deal with the surprise that Russia threw out to the US when they also effectively voted in favor of North Korea. And of course, the US said they were surprised about that. One can almost see this tit-for-tat dynamic starting to play out. You support Israel, will support Russia, or will support North Korea. And how significant is that? Because Russia, in other words, is supporting North Korea by the move they've taken. But then we've got this issue of how far are they then both going in their support for one, North Korea, and how does the United States justify the fact that their foreign policy posture towards Israel has not changed?
Well, frankly, I think I never thought I'll find myself saying this, but Russia and China have shown considerable restraint throughout all this issue. Frankly, I mean, if I were Putin or President Xi, I would have told my ambassadors a long time ago that the Security Council of the United Nations tell the Americans, we won't forget this vote that we've just cast. And if you think you are the only one who can use the veto to paralyze the Security Council of the United Nations, we also can use the veto to paralyze the United. I mean, after all, reciprocity is one of the is one of the games of diplomacy. You have cast this you have cast this veto so many times to protect your mentee. We also have mentees that we also, we don't want to be made to look weak. We don't want to be made to look as if we don't understand the you know, the game of reciprocity. We will remind you when the day comes. And I'm so surprised that it has taken Russia this long before it decided to activate its own power veto. So I'm not surprised. The surprise is it has taken so long.
Let me go to Senegal. Last week, we talked about the elections that took place there. And one of the points that came up, sir, was the fact that the new president, Baye, was there, but then Baye was at the time, to borrow from your word, regarded as a bit of a mentee to Sonko. And we wondered, what would he do at the end of the day when he gets sworn in? And now he's sworn in, and we can see that he's appointed Sonko as the prime minister in that country. How do you see that relationship playing out? And what does this mean? Because we know some of the views that Sonko had shared in the past against foreign powers, particularly France. What do you see about that relationship between those two individuals running a government? And I think they're probably the youngest two in Africa at this point in time. What do you see to that, sir? And what do you see in terms of how they relate with other African leaders, given the wide disparity in age between these groups of people? Their views are going to be very different. What do you think about that development, sir?
It's going to be problematic because we're talking about human beings, and history is replete with examples of very close allies falling out in the process of governance. Number one, none of them, I mean, after the honeymoon period, none of them will want to be seen as, to use the language of the Chinese. None of them will want to be seen as the laughing dog of the other. At the beginning, I could see, depending on circumstances, I could see the prime minister deferring to the president at the beginning. But sooner or later, the prime minister is going to be dropping hints that, well, after all, I'm your mentor. And I am being made to look to my supporters as if, I'm just running after you with a wagging tail. Cut me slack. At least let me also look as if I have ideas of my own. Even if you are not going to buy the ideas, let it make it look like it's something that I can show my supporters. And don't forget that my supporters made you the president, and they did. It was the vote of the youth that made the president the president. He really didn't have any base of support, except the supporters of the prime minister. We human beings are troublemakers. You are going to start having his own supporters come to him and say, well, are you really going to be made to look like you are the mentee of the president rather than the mentor? So you're good. And unfortunately, the president is a young man. A young man who doesn't have, sufficient background and experience to tell his own supporters, cut it out. Cut it out. This man made us president. I can even give you an example. Remember that part of the, I don't know whether it is still there or not, but about 2 years ago or so, there was tension between the White House and the office of the Vice President, Kamala Harris. And the blacks were starting to complain that, look, we made you the president. Your campaign was dead in the waters until you got to this South Carolina or somewhere like that, and we resurrected it for you. Now, our own representative, our own main representative in your regime is being made to look like she's worth nothing. And this always happens. In fact, I cannot say, apart from maybe Obama and this same Biden, and maybe there's another president, anyway, who got along very well. They were mature enough. They beat back their supporters, asking their supporters, Clinton and I forgot Clinton. Al Gore, who they made sure they met over breakfast and ironed out whatever differences of opinion that they had and beat back, these young people who had no experience, who never won any election in their lives, but who are good troublemakers. They are the ones who will be planting ideas, friction in the minds of their principals. I hope that now that election is how many months down the road, Biden has been clever enough again to tell his people calm it. They made us president. Not you, not you young guys. So it's not going to be only in Senegal that it will manifest itself. It also manifests itself in other countries, that are even more that we know are more not civilized is not the word, that are more mature than Senegal. But I hope that there will be African leaders who the new president will call upon to help moderate whatever may be the little things that doesn't really matter between the mentor and the mentee.
So I'm going to ask you a question that someone has sent to me directly here, and I hope I can frame this right regarding some positive news for Nigeria, but some of the challenges that that positive news has thrown out there. And that's with regards to, for the first time in a very long time, a Nigerian airline has been able to go to the UK, London, Gatwick, back to Nigeria, and was a very good flight. But then...
Are you on board?
Well, we listened to what those who are on board have said, and they've described it as very good flight. However, some news is coming out, and I think that the leader of the airline, Air Peace, has come out to talk about potential sabotage-related issues, and even more concerning is not only on the Nigerian side did they experience that, but even in the UK, they also experienced things that one would say wouldn't be ideal for an airline that is just starting to pick up. What is your take on that issue, sir? Is it worth intervention by the Nigerian government to make sure that this works out, or is this just business? And let's keep it as business and not make it a diplomatic issue.
It's not just business. There is nothing just called business. I'm not surprised that so early in the day, there will be allegations of sabotage from both the Nigerian side and the British side. Number one, I'm close to Oyem. And I've talked with him several times before he finally got this license to fly into Britain. He'd been at it for a very long time. First question I will ask, and the reason he's been at it for a very long time was because he wanted a landing slot at Heathrow, while the British government insisted on Gatwick, until he finally had no, I think he kind of felt he'd come to the end of the road. He better accept Gatwick. Now, what was the sabotage from the Nigerian end? Nigerian officials, against the express dictates of ICAO, that insisted on reciprocity. Nigerian officials had been allowing British Airways and Virgin Airlines to have 2 landing spots in Lagos per day, 2 landing spots in Kano, in Abuja per day, and 2 landing spots in Port Harcourt per day. Now, that gives you 6 landing spots all over Nigeria. Why did Nigerian government officials allow Britain to shuttle Air Peace to Gatwick? I don't want us to be charged with saying things that making charges that we shouldn't make on this program. But I know enough about how government runs. Let me give you 2 examples of when I was a minister, what happened. I was Minister of Foreign Affairs. A lieutenant colonel was Minister of Aviation. And he came to the conclusion that it was not fair for us to give British Airways and Virgin all these landing spots, while at that time fairness, while we were giving Heathrow, but we were giving 1 or 2 spots and shuttled into one corner of Heathrow rather than central spots. So he decided, he consulted with me, and I said, well, you'll be pulling the tail of the tiger, but what the heck, let's try. So he took a memo to cabinet that, and at that time, Arik and I believe it's Aero, and then there's this Grenadian Airlines, all had applications, to fly to Britain. So we decided this tit for tat. The number of landing slots we give in Lagos, in Nigeria, will be the number of landing spots we will collect from you in England. Cabinet approved. Well, British Airways and Virgin activated their supporters in other parts of Nigeria and sold them the dummy that Lagos wanted to monopolize the landing spots and make their life miserable by making them first land in Lagos before they then land in other parts of Nigeria. And such were their supporters, who have sufficient gravitas that they came to the president of the day and now packaged their complaints within, the usual fault lines that we have in Nigeria. And so, in spite of the fact that it was a cabinet decision, we had to reverse ourselves. The cabinet had to reverse itself. We lost that. But the one we won was all of a sudden, an announcement was made on BBC that Nigerian Airways crew, every queue before the British High Commission and get visa, the crew. Every flight, they must get visa to fly into London before their flight can come in. Of course, there was panic all around and conditions. But British Airways and Virgin Atlantic, their crew must get visas on every flight before they can fly into Nigeria. Within 3 hours, they reversed the regulations because they couldn't sustain it. There was no way, unless they were going to expose themselves to racism, that they could justify that. Now, it looks to me as if what Air Peace is going through is that there are officials in the Ministry of Aviation who are in collusion with British Airways, with Virgin Atlantic, to continue the favorable conditions that they are giving British Airways and Virgin Atlantic, and they are not putting enough pressure on the British Civil Aviation organization to allow Air Peace to land into Heathrow. And this must be what Dr. Yama meant by, on the Nigerian side, and on his own side as well. I don't know what he means by his own side, but where money comes in, I will not be surprised that people selling their birthrights. I mean, after it was in the Bible that people sold their birthright, so I will not be surprised. My advice would be to call on, usually it is the president who can resolve this. If I were the president, I will call in the Minister of Aviation in Nigeria, and I will give him a deadline. You lose your job, or Air Peace get the same landing spot in Heathrow. Number 2, you lose your job, or the same number of landing spots that British Airlines gets in Nigeria, they get in the United Kingdom. Once you have a president who lays down that law, I assure you that within weeks, this will be resolved.
Thank you, sir. Let me go to one point that we discussed slightly a while ago, but not in too much depth. And this was when President Macron initially brought up this idea of troops on the ground in Ukraine. And we thought, oh, they've got to be crazy. Who's going to support that? Now we have some other countries that are supporting such a move. And more importantly, NATO has now said, hey, we're going to try to put a long-term agreement in place of about $100 billion in direct support of Ukraine. Is this not drawing NATO directly into the conflict with Russia? And would Russia be wrong to respond if these situations were to materialize?
I stumbled against an analysis by a gentleman, an analyst. Don't let me call him a scholar. An analyst. He was originally in the United States. He's in Great Britain now. And what he wrote was that we are on the verge of a World War III. And more or less, he was telling Europe the lights are about to go out all over Europe if you are not careful. I have said it on this platform many, many times, that it looks to me as if Ukraine is being hung out to dry. Now, Finland, Estonia, Sweden, name of these small countries that share a border with Russia. And they will look to me like easy pickings if you are not careful. Temptation. Well, you know, we were able to swallow Finland. So how about Georgia? How about Estonia? How about even Sweden? They are easy pickings. And I could see almost a replay between Stalin and Hitler. Until finally, Hitler swallowed enough of Europe that Europe then said, now wait a minute, we've got to fight back. So let us hope that is not what is being played. What is being played out. My apologies. And I think that we are now starting to get views in Europe that says if we are not careful, World War III is going to be on our doorsteps because we didn't dig ourselves in to fight. If the United States will not make the money available, then we, the Europeans, will have to simply find the money and put the money on the ground. I mean, I keep saying that if the United States were to pay ground rent for the land occupied by its troops in Europe, Trump may not be talking about Europe not paying its dues. He may not be talking about that. So I'm not a warmonger. So I don't want those of you who are young on this platform to say that you will pay the price, where people of Prof's age, they will have found their way out. But as a scholar, I'm looking at the season as it is and saying Europe should get its act together. Number one, NATO should get its act together. Number three, NATO should stop allowing the United States to bully it and develop a backbone. And then we will see whether the United States is ready for Russia to conquer the world. Now, it's not even going to be Russia alone, because China is then going to be a player. And the United States may find out that it's going to be a three-triangular war, and not just war between the United States and Russia.
Let me end, we've got about 3 minutes left. So I want to go to the Middle East very quickly, because earlier on in the week, there was this news that came out from Tehran that they would surely be retaliating for the blast on the Iranian embassy in Syria by Israel. And it seems like Iran is faced with a conundrum here. How do you retaliate without escalating the situation in the Middle East? And I think they've used some words that I've heard before not too long ago. We will respond at a time of our own choosing, is what they've said. What is your view on how Iran should respond to this attack?
No. Let me avoid that question before I am accused of, pushing Iran or encouraging Iran to into war. I think at my age, what I should be trying to do is to dampen
Oh, wow. Looks like the internet decided to end on that note as well. Okay, you're back, sir. You froze for a few seconds there, sir. And I thought that maybe the internet had chosen to help you out.
No, I was just saying I should avoid answering your question so that I'm not accused of engineering Iran into war, that I should rather dampen, the war. So I will avoid that question. There are ways and means where what Iran can do all over the world, that will antagonize its own protagonists. That is not to say that in any confrontation, Iran will win. No. But Iran is capable of inflicting unacceptable uh, mm, unacceptable damages on the other parts also of the world. Iran is capable. I mean, after all, you know, there are Iranian refugees all around the world. And look at the kind of damage that was done when those planes flew into those towers. And now look at the cost to the United States of retaliation. I don't think we want to go down that route.
All right, so we've run out of time. So I think time has helped us quite nicely on dealing with that question. So I'd leave it there for today. There was one question I was going to ask, but I'll bring it up next week since we've run out of time. And this is the issue that took place in Georgia, where there was a law that was passed, or at least put forward, which referred to every organization that received foreign investment as they were called, I think that the language that was used was, they called it the Foreign Agents Law. So if you received money from abroad, you were regarded as a foreign agent. Now they've made some changes to the wording, but not to the full substance of that law. And I'd like to hear your take on that, but I'll start that next week, because I think it also has implications for other countries as well, who may choose to either adopt something similar, or maybe Georgia has gone too far. But we'll start next week on that point, and then we'll address some of the other issues that come in. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you to all our viewers. We'll be back again same time next week. Have a lovely week. Good night, everyone.
Good night.